Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hi, everybody. It's animation director Bill Croyer, and you're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Aye, mateys, remember this as the day you sailed with the Skull Rock Podcast. Proceed at your own risk, and mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tale.
Welcome back to Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's playing in theaters, and what's going on in this universe of entertainment. I'm Aljon, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culturist. And you can email me, Aljon, A-L-J-O-N, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and traveling man. Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on the Skull Rock YouTube channel. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon, wow, I think we're still in the midst of our travels here.
Yes.
But you went to Walt Disney World. What? Yeah, how was that?
I did. The kids had fall break. We packed up the family truckster and headed down to Walt Disney World and spent a week out there at the resort. And, we had a blast. And the kids were able to ride some roller coasters for the first time, Dave.
Wow.
They are 5 and 6 respectively. And they went on Cosmic Rewind, Guardians of the Galaxy there at Epcot, and it blew their lids. Like, they were just blown away. They were like, oh my gosh. I think my son was like, going upside down and the inversions and going so fast on those rides, which it really is an amazing attraction. It really is in so many ways. And
that's so great that they finally met the height requirements to go on some of those attractions.
Exactly right. And so we did that. We did the Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is really great. This is the first time as a family we're able to go to Tiana's, which was the former Splash Mountain.
Yes.
And we saw the new animatronics and the effects and everything was great.
And what did you think?
I enjoyed it. I really did. I do miss some of the original story in there because, going through and the whole story of Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear were definitely missed. But I did like what they did with the place. And I just wish that, they had a Tiana's restaurant there, which would make complete sense as you leave, to go into a restaurant of some kind. But it was great. Like, we really enjoyed it.
But you did dump into a gift shop, right?
Oh, of course you dump into a gift shop. It's Disney, Dave. Of course. I mean, you probably helped design a million of those gift shops. And so we did that. And then we also took in the Country Bear Jamboree with all the new modern music. So instead of Blood in the Saddle, they're sitting there singing, music from the various Disney IP. So you had them do Zootopia with the Shakira song, and they did a bunch of, A Whole New World, so it was good to see them freshen that bit up. I like the fact that, to be honest, I really like the fact that they're integrating music in that way and they're modernizing it, because I really do love the classic show. But if they were to spruce it up and do more numbers and do more music, it'd be like a musical review that changes every now and again for the season, which would be a great kind of theatrical thing to do, especially for people that return to the park. And then we also were able to go to Epcot and experience the International Food and Wine Festival. So that, of course, was great. There's some things we miss. I really miss, remember, Dave, they had these symposiums or these panels that they would host with stars from the Food Network or HGTV and talk about, how to do this, or they'd have these wine pairings and the samplings and all that. They got rid of all that, Dave. And
Wow.
so they don't have book signings. And we used to love going to see the Disney chefs and to see the mixologist and everybody from the different properties come in and do their classes and courses so you could learn more about food and wine pairings and all this. So we would buy all those tickets throughout the day. They didn't do any of that. It's all about the kiosks of the food. And while those are good, and we did have great experiences, and the kids enjoyed snacking around the world, and we enjoyed sampling the wine flights and the beer flights, there's just something missing of that, because I used to love going and meeting the artists and the cookbook art authors and all that stuff. I miss that.
Wow.
And then,
well, they just keep changing things up. And, I have no doubt if they hear enough from guests that they're missing those kinds of things, that stuff will come back.
I hope so. They do take those surveys. The last thing I will say is we ate at Space 220 next to Mission Space at Epcot, where you take that space elevator all the way up to the space station to have a meal. It's very similar to like a coral reef experience where you look outside the portal and you see the ocean and all the fish. Well, you look out and you see the screen, and then there's elements of astronauts doing moonwalks and different spacecraft flying around. So it has a really nice experience, and as a family really loved it. The food was really good. So we'll talk more about it on the Dining at Disney podcast that I host with my wife and Kat.
Awesome.
So yeah, you'll hear more about it, but we had a great time, Dave. So thanks for asking. That was my short review of our trip. Thumbs up for Disney, and thumbs up to the cast members who always make it a special time for the family. So.
Well, we're back with part 2 of Tad Stone's interview, producer and one of the founders of Disney TV Animation.
Love it.
Got some great feedback already from part 1, so I'm excited about that.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad I was able to sit in on this interview, and Tad's just a wealth of knowledge. So I know people are going to be chomping at the bit to dig deeper with our deep dive. So that'll be a lot of fun. So, Dave, were we able to get some email this week?
We did.
Awesome.
We did. One in particular came Mike Quachella, who was a guest on the show, if you remember, I think a year or so ago. Mm-hmm. And he says, "Bravo with the Bill Croyer half dozen episodes. You raised the bar. Such good work."
Yeah.
That's great. A great compliment from Mike, and I certainly appreciate it. I think Mike, who has a YouTube channel, by the way, Aljon, wants to have you and I on at some point to talk about Skull Rock and animation in general.
That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations to Mike on his podcast, and always great to hear from him. He's so encouraging, and what a great spirit, and just a talented filmmaker himself. So good stuff.
Yeah, and other than that, we've had a number of other just comments on our respective social media outlets, and just people just enjoying the show. And I'm seeing that people are going into our vault and listening to past podcasts that they might have missed. And it's hard to believe, Aljon, we have now almost 260 episodes.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable what we're doing.
Yeah, we're just barreling along. And the other thing that, because you and I have been traveling, we've had some short shows and haven't really had a chance to talk, but we are now celebrating our 5th year with this podcast.
I can't believe it, Dave. 5 years. Congratulations, Dave. What a milestone.
It's unbelievable. Congratulations to you. Who would have thought, right?
I know, right? And we've just struck up such a great friendship, I believe. We have a great rapport, and I'm glad our listeners enjoy our content every single week. It really, truly is a joy to be with you every week, Dave, to talk about Disney and pop culture. And I'm so glad we made the move to do this podcast. And also just you opening up with all of your former colleagues there at Disney and Bluth and so many other projects you've been a part of, Imagineering, over the years. And As a fan, as a super fan, I just love the fact I get to be a fly on the wall at these things because, we love the brands and the project so much. So it's very cool.
And it's crazy, Aljon, because not only do I reach out to people, but now because the show has really taken on a life of its own and so many people are listening to it, there are folks reaching out to me saying, hey, can I come on the show?
Yeah.
And so, I'm setting up more recording sessions for the next couple of months. But we've got shows going out now into February, March of next year.
I love it. I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I love it. It's so cool. And the fact that we get to, do things like Animation Y'all together.
Yeah.
Is really great because it's just a celebration with everybody.
And by the way, speaking of that, Aljon,
okay.
we are locked in to Animation Y'all Expo, which is in April of 26. I have signed all the paperwork for the booth space, but also we're sponsors.
Oh, wow.
That's right. We took a sponsorship. So we are founding exhibitors of the Animation Y'all Expo.
I love it.
And I got to tell you, they've expanded it for this second year because last year they had to turn people away.
That's amazing.
And so this year, this coming expo, which will be their second expo, they've enlarged, the amount of people that they can bring in. They've enlarged their facilities to accommodate that. And I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic expo.
That's awesome. I can't wait. It was such a blast to check out all the artists. And I definitely came in, excited about the show, but left with so much great stuff and art. I can't tell you how much art. I mean, you always spend hundreds of dollars at these things supporting the artists that you love. And it's great to meet our guests and support them and see the fans. And there were so many fans of our podcast, Dave. I was so pleased to see everybody. So
absolutely. Yeah. It was a steady stream over the 3 days.
It was great.
We had people coming to visit us. So I will tell our listeners that at the April Expo, which will be here before we know it, we're going to have Skull Rock merch. I'm going to have more Skull Rock hot sauce.
That's awesome. And
so,
I still owe some hot sauce to some of our Patreon members, our Skull Rock crew members.
Just tell me how many you need, and I'll get them off to you.
Yeah, I need to do that. I've been busy, so I apologize to some of our Patreon members. But thank you for supporting our show, and we look forward to Animation Y'all in the spring. It's going to be awesome.
All right.
Well, I tell you what, it is now time for a segment that we hadn't done in a few weeks, Dave. Can you believe it? It is our picks of the week. Dave, you've been in the theater. You were able to catch some films and streaming. What have you been watching?
I absolutely got to the movies, and I got to see Tron Ares. I was looking forward to this movie. And it didn't disappoint me, Aljon. I have to tell you, I think that this movie's going to have legs at the box office as word of mouth spreads.
Nice.
The synopsis of the film is mankind encounters AI beings for the first time when a highly sophisticated program, Ares, leaves the digital world for a dangerous mission in the real world. This movie is visually stunning, and not only that, has a fantastic soundtrack by Nine Inch Nails.
Yes.
It's really terrific. The movie stars Jared Leto as Ares, Greta Lee as Eve Kim, and also Evan Peters, who plays a villain, Julian Dillinger. Jeff Bridges reprises his role in this franchise. Cameron Monaghan and a number of other folks that are in this film. I found this to be a really enjoyable movie.
Awesome.
The concept was fantastic. The production design is wonderful. Visually, it's just stunning to watch. And I'm surprised that there's headlines saying that Tron Ares is bombing, because I think we're going to talk about it in our news. It's number one this weekend.
Yeah,
this
it's
past
kind of
weekend,
crazy.
right?
I mean, it is.
I think this is one of those films where people are writing it off too quickly. I think this is getting a slow burn, as you said. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look, Rotten Tomatoes gives it 52%. I disagree with that. 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and 63% of the people who went to see this liked this movie.
Yeah.
I give it 2 thumbs up, and I would tell you, if you have a chance, you should see this in a theater with a good sound system, because it's really an awesome movie.
Would you have ever thought that you'd be hearing Nine Inch Nails at the Disney parks?
No,
it's crazy, right? With
the
now they get the Tron Ares soundtrack over there at Tron at the parks, and that's crazy. I mean, I love Nine Inch Nails.
Look, it's great. I mean, I think that you have to be evolving in the parks and with attractions and films, so that you're appealing to your audience. Disney has a very wide audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, on the small screen, I watched Murder Before Evensong on Acorn TV. It's through Prime, Amazon Prime. This follows a canon, Daniel Clement, played by Matthew Lewis. Clement believes that Anthony and Ned's murders are connected to wartime secrets, but D.S. Van Loo disagrees. So, this is a typical British murder mystery. I think it's extremely well done. I've really enjoyed this. It stars Matthew Lewis, as I mentioned, as Canon Daniel Clement, who's the main character, Amanda Redman, Adam James, Francis McGee. There's a whole cast of familiar British actors in this film. It's based on Murder Before Evensong by Richard Coles, which was a novel that was out. So I liked it, and I enjoy those British mysteries, murder mysteries.
Yes.
Now, over on Hulu, Aljon, you've got Disney Plus bundle, right? You got Hulu.
I do. You've
got to watch Chad Powers.
Oh, yeah.
This is absolutely hilarious.
Oh, boy.
It's from Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell stars in this, but he's also the creator and one of the writers. And it's absolutely hysterical. A former college quarterback attempts a comeback by posing as a walk-on player for a struggling football team. Now, in the first episode, they absolutely allude to Mrs. Doubtfire, because in order for him to do a walk-on, he has to put on facial prosthetics to change his look, so he's not recognized.
Yes.
I just thought this was so funny, and Glenn Powell is brilliant in playing this character, Chad Powers. Wonderful cast. You got Perry Matfield as Ricky, who becomes a love interest and one of the coaches of this college football team. Steve Zahn, who's always great. He plays the coach of the football team. And it's just this wonderful ensemble cast of people, and there's just some really funny writing in this movie, in this television show. And I believe the first season is just six episodes, which is very disappointing, but you've got to see this. It's absolutely hysterical. I can't recommend this highly enough. Check it out. It gets 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes only gives it 57%. I think that's BS. I think you have to watch at least 2 episodes to get into this series. And Glenn Powell does a fantastic job. Kudos to Hulu. This is also an ESPN co-production. Because of the football theme, and it's just wonderfully done.
Nice.
You know, and Glenn Powell. What's so great about Glenn Powell is he doesn't take himself seriously.
Yes.
You know, and it just comes through in a wonderful portrayal of this character he creates, Chad Powell. So check it out on Hulu.
Nice.
Aljon, what have you been watching?
Well, I went to the theaters because it is that time of year, Dave, where I get to do more Halloween horror nights. And so we checked out The Strangers Chapter 2. I was a big fan of The Strangers, which is a really, suspenseful but also thrilling, horrific home invasion movie. Came out last year. And apparently the filmmakers ended up recording all three films at the same time. So this is meant to be a trilogy. The Strangers Chapter 2. Left stranded in a small town with no way out, Maya must once again face a night of terror courtesy of three deadly killers whose rampage must be put to an end. It takes place immediately after what happened during the last film. This young couple goes on like a honeymoon retreat, ends up getting tortured by this group of strangers knocking at the door, everyone's worst nightmare. She ends up surviving. The small town is like, oh my gosh, this young lady, I thought she was left for dead. And apparently there's paranoia. That's one of the biggest themes of this, is like, who can you trust? She escaped the hospital where she was recovering from this trauma, and who in this small town can you trust? Is it a group of youngsters who have the same tattoo? Are they all involved in this situation? I seemingly remember the tattoo of the people that came to our house in the previous installment. So there's a lot of terror that's involved there. Some really slight callbacks to others in the genre. So it was a very good film. People have not been necessarily kind to this film, as most horror movies have been. 4.7 on IMDb. I gave it a nice 7. So I definitely am intrigued, and much like many middle movies of a trilogy, this had a very nice cliffhanger leading you to the next one. So I would assume that The Strangers Chapter 3 would be coming to theaters next Halloween. And that is my assumption.
Okay. I mean, as long as you're going to see those movies, because some of these horror movies, the trailers give me nightmares.
Yeah, there you go. Well, this is definitely something where the kids are definitely with a babysitter. You don't want to take the kids to this one. Well, speaking of something you can watch with the children, we did do a rewatch of The Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus. It really is I thought it was a shame that this came out around the pandemic time. But this film, also didn't do so well on IMDb, being rated a 6. This is, of course, all-star studded cast from Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, of course, Rosario Dawson, who's amazing. Love her. Tiffany Haddish. And then you also had one of the leads, I'm trying to remember exactly who, Chase Dillon. So there was a bunch of really great actors in this, and this is kind of like they're trying to reboot some of these park franchises, these tie-ins. And I thought it was a fun film. So directed by Justin Simon. So once again, it's good stuff. A single mom named Gabby hires a tour guide, a psychic, and a priest and a historian to help exorcise her newly bought mansion after discovering it was inhabited by ghosts. So just a lot of fun.
I have to say, I saw that in the theaters when it came out.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I saw it in the theaters.
I think we did talk about
it. It wasn't long after. It was like a year after the pandemic or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, and I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was a great movie personally.
Yeah.
And I think, isn't there a Muppets Haunted Mansion version?
The Muppets Haunted Mansion is much better.
Yes. Yeah. I of all the Haunted Mansion movies, the Muppet Haunted Mansion is the one to watch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and I did see that with the kids. I mean, the Muppets Haunted Mansion is really great. I think the Haunted Mansion film that came out 2023, PG-13, I think is good, but had so much promise, and I think it just really didn't know who the audience was. I think it was torn between a couple different things.
Sure.
I did see, Dave, you're going to be interested in this. We saw the Jonas Brothers live. And so, All American Rejects, who I work with, the Jonas Brothers, who we work with, it's no small surprise to our listeners, longtime listeners, that I build guitars for a company, and they play all of our guitars. So, and I've never seen the Jonas Brothers live, but I've never been so deaf in my entire life because of all the women screaming. This is like what the Jonas Brothers have been like 20 years now. They've been doing it. I mean, they rose to their height at the end of the aughts, right? 2000, 2008, 2006, somewhere in that time frame, where they were blowing up Disney Channel. It was all about camp rock. It was the Jonas Brothers, this, that. You couldn't turn without seeing the Jonas Brothers in Target stores and everywhere. And we had our own signature guitar with the Jonas Brothers, and they put on a fantastic show. It was so good. The production values were great. Their singing was off the chain. Yes, they do sing the tracks because it's an amazing full sound. The subwoofers, the bass delivery was insane, but the women screaming, Dave, was so deafening.
Was it continuous throughout their songs? It
was continuous. Nashville, it was like Nashville Arena was sold out. It was just insane.
Wow.
And so, I had this woman, my wife and I are 50 years old. We're just hanging out there, and she's having a good time because we saw All American Rejects, who was also prominent and now having a resurgence. It's a 25-year nostalgia cycle, Dave. It's coming back.
American Rejects, they're great.
They're a great band. And I'm working with them, and saw them, of course, open up for the Jonas Brothers. They did a great 30-minute set, and it was just a great event. And every one of their songs is a hit, but every one of their songs is like 3 minutes. It's like the old Beatles songs. They're like quick pop numbers, but it was very impactful, and they put on a great show. So if you really love pop music and honestly well-written pop songs, go check out the Jonas Brothers. I mean, it was a really good show. Here's something.
And they're obviously touring, right?
They're touring right now, and they're making their way across the country, and it's a very big production. A lot of lights, a lot of pyro, good stuff.
Let me ask you, All American Rejects, that's really from the era of the Goo Goo Dolls and the Kooks and those kinds of bands, right?
Yeah. It was on the tail end of the Goo Goo Dolls. The Goo Goo Dolls were really prolific in the early 2000s, with songs like Slide, but All American Rejects followed up after that, and kind of almost in that emo pop punk style that was popular. They're kind of more like power pop. So they're great. Yeah. Great band. All right. So here's something. I watched a train wreck called Nashville 911.
Oh boy.
So, in Tennessee, dedicated emergency responders balance their high-stakes careers with the drama and powerful local dynasty where personal lives and professional duties collide. Dung dung. It's almost like one of those shows. It has a very good cast. Chris O'Donnell, Jessica Capshaw, Kimberly Page, Paisley's in there. Leanne Rimes in there as well, and a bunch of young actors. Wow. Directed by Bradley Booker. The local tie-ins are great, but I will tell you that there is a plot line here where a kid is in Centennial Park, which is where the Parthenon here is in Nashville, and gets blown away by lifts off like the balloon boy that I was talking about several weeks ago. The wind picks up because there's a storm moving into Nashville that causes a bunch of damage. And lo and behold, this kid just flies away on a kite. And I'm thinking, what kind of what kind of heart garbage is this that I'm watching? You know what I mean? It's like, it just totally took me away. This is like a storyline that would be part of a year 9 of a series that is losing steam and they're running out of stories to tell. And Kristen kept on telling me, Aljon, they're just getting started. It'll get better. Just have some faith. And I'm like, I don't know if I can have faith. You know, there's some things when you watch a show that automatically are like, oh my God, they better do great on this show. And
some of these shows though are just being recycled. They're just recycling stories.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you know, it's the drama of Nashville, the TV show from a few years back, plus the 911 situation, which is always situational, very much like Grey's Anatomy. Excuse me. Very much like Grey's Anatomy, but instead of happening in a hospital, it happens in a firehouse. So it's a 5.1 on IMDb. I like the show. I like the cast, and I think it's gonna find. You know, after maybe 3 episodes, I'll review it and see if it kind of finds its legs. But
all right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But there you have it, gang. That's what I've been watching, and maybe you can check out the kite storyline in the first episode of Nashville 911, and you tell me if I'm off base here. So, gang, what have you been watching? Let us know.
And by the way, I'm sorry, Aljon, to interrupt you.
It's all right.
By the way, these types of shows are the reason why people are abandoning television and going on to YouTube to find entertaining short form material.
You know, I am a fan of the video essay, and I find myself going down that video essay rabbit hole about Marvel Comics and about old TV shows like The Golden Girls or something like that. I'm just watching about retro TV, but you know, there you go, man. I was not impressed by the first episode, and I saw the plot twist happening a mile away. You know, you could totally see it. It's TV 101 if you've been watching. So anyway, what have you been watching? Right. Let us know in the show notes. Send us those emails and we'll check it out in a future episode. And now it is time for
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
All right, Dave. Black Phone 2. Blumhouse. It is the Halloween time, Dave, and Blumhouse is back in action with Black Phone 2 as it heads for a $24.4 million opening elsewhere. Aziz Ansari's rated R comedy Good Fortune isn't finding much to laugh about in its box office debut, as a star-packed cast includes Seth Rogen and Keanu Reeves. So, Black Phone 2, Dave. You know, I did review Black Phone 1. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but I really enjoyed it. It was definitely different, and what I love about it is the fact that it is, by Jason Blumhouse. So it was good, as opposed to Megan 2.0, which was a little bit of a flop for Blumhouse. They put a lot of money into to Megan 2, but there you have it. I mean, it's doing really well, all things considered. These films don't take a whole lot of money to produce, but they do rake in a lot. No, not at all.
Yeah.
They do rake in a lot.
They make a lot of money, though. That's
they
for
do.
Sure.
Plus, Ethan Hawke is great. A serial killer called The Grabber. He's back and should be doing really well. Costing relatively inexpensive $30 million to produce, Blumhouse and Universal will have no trouble releasing, toppling the Disney holdover Tron Ares, which grossed $3 million Friday. However, it's doing really great everywhere else, and I'll talk about that later. But it earned $3 million Friday from a 4,000 theaters to a projected 11 million the second weekend. The tentpole has been a disappointment so far, looking at a steep decline of 65% in its second week, which is interesting, because the numbers globally say a little bit different, I think. And
I think it's a good movie, and I think people are going to discover it, because I think the word of mouth is going to help it.
Absolutely. Lionsgate's Aziz Ansari directed comedy Good Fortune is also launching with difficulty this weekend, not finding much gold. It's a $30 million film that took in $2.4 million Friday from its 2,900 locations, including 70 725,000 in previews, so it's not a whole lot. But of course, it stars Seth Rogen, Keke Palmer, Sandra Oh, and Keanu Reeves. And of course, Reeves as a guardian angel assigned to save someone's soul. So interesting stuff indeed. And as we look at the box office, the top 25 chart, Tron Ares is actually weekend gross of 33 million. Over 4,000 locations, and it's the highest grossing film domestically so far this weekend.
So it's taking number one. It's the number one movie for the weekend.
Number one by a long shot, So it's like, I got this pulled right now this Sunday as we record this from the Box Office Hollywood Reporter. Roofman number 2, One Battle After Another from Warner Brothers at number 3. Gabby's Dollhouse pulls in 4. Conjuring: Last Rites that I reviewed a couple weeks ago before we went on our journeys at number 5. And of course, Smashing Machine with The Rock is at number 8. That was kind of like the film festival darling. The Rock playing that MMA fighter. It's not finding any footing. And The Rock actually went and did some press about it and was talking about how it didn't resonate with people for whatever reason. I can't wait to see it myself. And then The Strangers, Chapter 2, rounding out at number 9 with Good Boy at number 10. I mean, it's not bad. Demon Slayers is actually doing really well. We talked about that anime, and it's still hanging on at number 7, hauling in $2 million. I mean, anime's still going strong. So there you have it.
There you go. I by the way, I'm going to go see Good Fortune. I'll be talking about it next week.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear your take on it.
Yeah.
Dave, did you check this article about the AI actress? Did you check that out? It
says, there's going to be more and more of this stuff coming on, across the wire in the months ahead, because it's just a natural exploration of new technology. So
it's kind of crazy, they're talking about the AI boom, and I just wanted to mention it because it was big news last week. But yeah, they're definitely talking about that whole thing about YouTube and the AI that's involved in AI. It's kind of crazy what's going on right now with that. Having said that, John Carpenter, now let's talk a little bit about John Carpenter, shall we, is slated to executive produce supernatural horror anthology. Creators Michael Amo and Will Pascoe will showrun for Elevation Pictures. And this is good. Directing legend John Carpenter has come on board to executive produce a horror anthology series. And this looks good. Michael Amo, who did The Listener, and Will Pascoe on Orphan Black. Dave, I know you probably caught some episodes of Orphan Black. And this is good. Season 1 will be set in the remote wilderness of Alaska. This, as a diverse group of characters, will face a chilling mix of supernatural and existential terror in this anthology series, exploring the hidden fears and social anxieties of our time. So, if John Carpenter's attached to it, it's got to be pretty good, I would think. So,
I liked a lot of John Carpenter's films, especially, like The Fog.
Yes.
To me, the original Halloween.
Yes.
Wasn't that his?
That was him. Yep, that was him. And then They Live as well. I really enjoyed They Live.
He's made some very good films.
Absolutely. Spotify, Dave, is in the press again to develop AI music products in partnership with major record labels. I am shocked, but not so shocked. UMG, it's Universal Music Group, Sony, Warner Brothers, Merlin, and Believe have all signed on to the endeavor, with Spotify touting itself as artist-friendly policies. Quote, if the music industry doesn't lead in this movement, AI-powered innovation will happen elsewhere without rights, consent, or compensation. Dave, once again, AI taking front center stage in the music business as well as entertainment. I can't wait for you to delve into a panel discussion about AI and how this is changing our industry, because AI is being trained by YouTube and so many different things that is put out there, but it doesn't necessarily mean the quality is any good. I mean, I just read a story about AI being drafted to write, TV shows and things like the WWE is using AI to help punch up storylines and things of that nature. Dave, what's going on here?
Hey, listen, this is the Wild West with new technology, and you got to let this play itself out. People are going to experiment and do all kinds of stuff. There's going to be bad actors with this. There's going to be, people trying to regurgitate material off of some of these programs. And really, it's going to be what resonates with audiences. If audiences like something, it'll do well. If they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I have listened to a lot of just kind of funny things that AI music has done and produced, and while it's fun, it's hard for me to really support it because I am also a songwriter myself and have spent a lot of time and effort learning the craft, and it's just kind of weird. It's just kind of weird to me.
I mean, look, the thing about songwriting, or any kind of art that an artist is creating, is that it's coming from your passion, from your soul, your heart, right? And to have a software program just scrape off existing material out there and reconstitute it or regurgitate it as something new, again, it's not going to hold water.
Yeah. What a strange time we live in, Dave. Well, speaking of strange, Dave, Disneyland visitor dies after medical episode on the Haunted Mansion ride. Dave, it seems to me that, these things happen periodically at theme parks. We had a very tragic passing of a patron at Universal several weeks ago on a ride that I don't believe they should have been on. And now you have this over at Disneyland where, according to this from the LA Times, a Disneyland visitor who required medical attention after riding the theme park's Haunted Mansion attraction died in Orange County on Monday. Disneyland officials confirmed Wednesday that the patron required medical treatment, was taken to the hospital, did not provide further details. The guest had a heart attack on Haunted Mansion holiday.
Yeah, but Aljon, this really had nothing to do with the attraction.
Yes.
The Haunted Mansion, when you get in the Doom vehicle, the Doom buggy,
Yes.
It moved at 1 mile an hour. This person happened to have a medical emergency while they were on this attraction. I don't believe the attraction caused that medical emergency.
No.
That's just my view of it from reading the article.
Yes.
But, these things happen. But the bottom line is, you go to Disney, you go to any of the Disney theme parks and the Universal theme parks for that matter, they're probably safer than you driving down the freeway.
Well, absolutely. You think with millions and millions of people going through the turnstiles at the Disney or Universal theme parks that things like this are going to happen, right? Things like, there's a lot of people, a lot of different medical conditions and health conditions happen. And so this isn't news to me necessarily, but it is interesting that some people want to turn it around. But I tell you what is distressing, Dave, is another article. And this comes to us from Inside of Magic. Of course, Disney guest found dead on the monorail track, removed from the property, Dave. And this was very sad indeed. Body was being removed from the property from what local observers claim was a fall, or more actually a jump from a high point there on the monorail tracks. And this was shocking, super sad. And, there is distress, mental issues that have arose as more of these developments kind of evolve and more details are being uncovered through this investigation. But very sad indeed. When super fans or fans like this happen to take their life, it's very, very disheartening and very sad when these things happen. But
absolutely, especially when they decide to do it at a theme park.
Absolutely. It's really sad, and our thoughts are with the families and friends of those that are affected by this very sad news. Well, having said that, Dave, I'm not going to play the sounder because it just sounds really weird after that segment, but I will say that it is time now to talk about this week's passings, and there's a lot, so we're going to round it really quickly. I'm very saddened to talk about Drew Struzan. Iconic movie poster artist and favorite of Spielberg and Lucas, dies at the age of 78. I can't tell you how pivotal of a person, an influential person Drew Struzan is in terms of album covers and film movie posters. Prolific during the 80s and 90s. Some of his marquee art: Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Harry Potter. I mean, he's done every film franchise known to man, and I've hung many of his posters on my walls growing up, and it's very sad to see him pass. Dave, I mean, I know you're a fan of Drew Struzan's. Everybody is.
Oh, I mean, he was the guy to go to for posters in the late 80s and through the 90s. I mean, he was the artist, and he has a very distinctive style. Very sad to see this come across. He leaves behind an amazing body of work. And I really hope that somebody puts together a book of his poster work. I don't know if there's one out there, but I really think he is somebody deserving of a major book on his his body of work.
So I'm glad you said that, Dave. I talked about this 2013 documentary, excuse me, called Drew, the Man Behind the Poster. I believe that is available for streaming on Amazon, but there is a book. There's an anthology book that was released several years ago with all of his work. However, he has come out of retirement to do a few more things for The Walking Dead and a few more posters. And his son is actually also an artist. I believe also had a gallery showing recently this past week, and is putting together a book that will be out in November. So it'll be the complete Drew Struzan book. Those are both hard coffee table books, so you can do it. I know that's on my list for the holidays, but I had to immediately check and see if the new book was out. But I'm such a fan. So Drew Struzan, rest in peace, Drew Struzan. So there's more. Risky Business and Breakfast Club star Ron Dean dead after a long illness at the age of 87. Known for Risky Business and the Breakfast Club, actor died October 5th in a hospital in Chicago. Cause of death is unclear. He'd been fighting a long illness. Very sad news for that. Also in the past,
he was 87,
yeah,
right? I mean, 87. He had a good run, and he was a great character actor.
Absolutely. Moody blues singer and bassist John Lodge has died at the age of 82. They didn't reveal the cause of death, but he died suddenly and unexpectedly. Dave, also, 82, pretty great life, especially for being in the Moody Blues. It is with deepest sadness we have to announce that John Lodge, our darling husband, father, and grandfather, had been suddenly and unexpectedly taken from us. Said there was a post, I guess, from a family member. Very sad day indeed. And I love the Moody Blues. Great band. Speaking of musician, D'Angelo, R&B music icon, dead at the age of 51 after a battle with cancer. Dave, this struck me. And D'Angelo was a Grammy Award-winning R&B soul singer, kind of once again, was prominent in the 2000s with his soulful ballads, etc. But he had a prolonged battle with cancer. Very sad indeed. Passed away.
Yeah, this was
14th.
A shock. I was shocked when I saw this one because I just had no idea that he was battling cancer, and he's 51 years old. I mean, he was at really the height of his career.
Absolutely, very sad indeed. Very, very struck by that one. Oscar-nominated actress Penelope Milford, dead at the age of 77. Oscar-nominated actress who starred in hits like Coming Home, Valentino and Heathers, passed away. She died in an assisted living facility in Saugerties, New York. Per the Hollywood Reporter, no cause of death was given. And you may not know the name, but you know the face. Once again, as she said, she had a professional stage career starting off in 1971, starring alongside Richard Gere, whom was rumored she had dated. So very sad news there. Dave, a giant in the world of film, Diane Keaton, of course, passed away over this week at the age of 79. A First Wives Club actress died of pneumonia at the age of 79. And the Diane Keaton family was grateful for the extraordinary messages of love and support they've received over the past few days on behalf of their beloved Diane, who passed away October 11th. Keaton's relatives shared People magazine. Very sad indeed. And I think, she was definitely a giant in the industry, and of course the industry echoed their sentiment on social media. So many of her co-stars had so many great things to say about Diane Keaton. Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, she had an incredible body of work. This was a real shock when this came across that she had passed away. 79 to me is still young, and she seemed to have been vibrant. It's just a shame. But she leaves behind an incredible body of work, and that's the thing about some of these passings, is that you can still enjoy these people through the films they were in or the music they've created.
One of my favorite things that she's done is Father of the Bride. I can't stress how fun that film was, and apparently her health declined suddenly, so it was a very sudden thing. Yeah. Ed Williams of the Naked Gun and Police Squad, dead at the age of 98. Dave, wow, 98 years of age. Crazy.
I mean, this guy had an amazing life. 98 years old. Everybody should be this lucky.
Unbelievable, and a great comedic actor as well. Served in the U.S. Navy before moving to Hollywood with his wife, Nancy. This comes to us from Hollywood Reporter, passed away Thursday, October 2nd. Very sad indeed. Then,
and by the way, I will mention with Ed Williams, after the service, he went into teaching, and he taught at a couple of different places in Los Angeles, and then started acting later in life, if you will. So he had always been involved in theater and teaching acting and those types of classes, but to actually get in front of the camera later in life and had an incredible career in front of the camera.
Unbelievable. Another unbelievable passing was Ace Frehley, the founding member and original guitarist of the band Kiss, passes away at the age of 74. He had a fall not too long ago, and unfortunately really never recovered. Quote, "We are completely devastated and heartbroken," said, I guess this was his family members mentioned this in the Variety article. "In his last moments, we were fortunate enough to have been surrounding him with loving and caring, peaceful words, thoughts, prayers, and intentions as he left the earth." And he, wow, man, I'm such a big Kiss fan, and Dave, you're a New Yorker. So that band really embodied that New York, rock, glam, hard rock scene right there in New York.
Absolutely. And they had staying power.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're rock legends. Finally being inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after years of being snubbed by the critics. Kiss was one of my favorite rock bands growing up. And much like Van Halen, it was all about the electric guitar. Ace Frehley brought it. He definitely brought it, playing that electrified Les Paul and the smoke machines and the lights and everything about it. So, when I was in radio, Dave, all of us loved Kiss so much, we actually tape traded, and I had bootleg videos of Kiss and live concerts. Volumes and volumes of VHS tapes, and of course now with the internet, you don't need to have them anymore because they're all out there. But he definitely will be missed, and they were actually getting ready. Yeah,
I was going to say, do you think this is the end of Kiss, or do you think that Kiss will still tour and just put in somebody? I mean, Ace Frehley's not replaceable, but will they put somebody in to fill his role?
Well, Dave, Ace had been replaced, actually. They've had many different guitar players over time, over the past, 30 plus years. And
because he left and went on a solo track for a while.
Yes, he did. And he reunited with the band in 1996 that I was lucky enough to see them in Nashville play after the Unplugged session that kind of rebooted Kiss's career in the mid 90s. And then he joined them sporadically for different appearances on the Kiss Cruise, playing Unplugged. And the band had recently stopped touring. They did their farewell concert tour, I think maybe about a year and a half ago. And then they did like this New Year's Eve show. And I think they were getting ready to do the president. They were invited to do the Kennedy honors, I think. I think and I think that show is actually next week. So he was slated to perform with them, and then he just didn't make it, Dave. So it was very sad. Yeah, it is a shame. But they actually have another guitar player, Tommy Thayer, that I work with, and Tommy's been hosting the guitar duties for that band for a long time now. So
okay,
yeah. Well, and this is really sad. Limp Bizkit bassist just passed, Sam Rivers, dead at the age of 48. This is really sad and very shocking news this weekend. The band announced yesterday, as we record this Saturday, on a social media post, "Today we lost our brother and bandmate, our heartbeat." Limp Bizkit wrote on Instagram, sharing photos of their fallen band member. "Sam Rivers wasn't just our bass player, he was our magic and the pulse beneath every song. Calm in the chaos and the soul in our sound." Dave, so sad when someone so young passes.
What happened?
My understanding is that he's had a lot of different demons he had been battling, and I believe he had maybe a transplant. Trying to remember exactly what could have been like a liver transplant or something of that kind. Don't quote me on that, but I know that he's had a rough go at it. But he has recently tried to kind of put that past behind him. And it says right here, Rivers left the band in 2015 for health reasons, which was later revealed in the 2020 book, Tales from the Life of Metal Legends, were due to liver disease caused by alcohol abuse. So, and then he got treatment for alcohol and got a liver transplant, which was a perfect match. And then, of course, the band has seen a resurgence. So I wonder if some other things have happened to maybe, that kind of brought him back. But it's very sad indeed.
Very, very sad. Yeah.
Last but not least, Klaus Doldinger, the composer of Das Boot and Never Ending Story, dies at 89. The German composer combined jazz and classical orchestral music with the early synth sounds composed for the Grammy, for the Germany's #1 TV series Tort. I do remember that, especially of the Never Ending Story. 89 years old. He died October 16th, according to the German press. Very sad indeed. Wow, Dave. A lot of passings happened over the past couple weeks.
I was just going to say, Aljon, that was an unbelievable obituary roll call.
Yes.
There were just so many people who departed this past week or so.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you take a few weeks off and man, oh man. But anyway, guys, thank you for listening to our lengthy segment here. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. Sit back and relax, because we have here part 2 of Tad Stones, one of the founders of Disney Animation TV. Check it out, Tad Stones part 2, right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
Hey, let's chat.
Let's chat.
So let's chat now. Let's chat afterwards. And he said, let's chat again.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, we are back for week 2 with Tad Stones, who's a producer, a story artist, an animator, and one of the founding fathers of Walt Disney Television Animation. Tad, welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Hey, glad to be here.
Now, Tad, last week we kind of left off. You were just starting to talk about how Ron Miller asked you to go over to Imagineering to work on Epcot, which was being developed, and that you got to be office mates essentially with Ward Kimball. So why don't we sort of just back up a second and just how did that call come about? Did Ron say, "Hey, Tad, come up to my office," or what happened?
Yeah, I don't know how it started, but and this is so weird with people who think of Disney as it exists today. Disney was so small back then that I used to hang around almost every lunch with Ron Clemens, Randy Cartwright, Ed Gombert. Just a group of us that just spend lunch together and walk around the back lot. We went into the catwalks of the sound stages and threw Whammo Super Balls off of them to see how high they'd bounce, because the sound stages were used to store 16 millimeter educational film. They didn't even think to rent the stages out. It was just this tiny thing. It was almost, run like a little like a small family business. Which
I was going to say it was at that point it was a mom and pop business still, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I used to visit Ron Miller every once in a while. I forget the excuses, but you go up there to cover one thing, and then you spend like another 10 minutes just chatting about things, and how that started, probably with the educational film and stuff like that, because I would pitch things. He would look at them too, just to keep track of things. So yeah, so Ron was familiar with me. I talked to him on different projects, and yeah, that just seemed like a smooth fit that I was, because frankly, having done that one educational thing, it's like, I don't want to be, because there was an older story guy who had done similar things, and it's not a cubby hole I wish to fit in.
Sure.
It was like, I wanted to do all, it was, yes, I made the subject matter as entertaining as I could, but I wanted to work in, in entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, Disney at that time had Disney Educational Productions. They had a catalog of educational films that really went back to the late 1940s. And actually really to World War II, if you really want to include some of that stuff, because they did repurpose some of the aerology films for, for science classes, weather films, where they just redid some of the narration and things like that. And there was some repurposing that was going on, but it was at its peak, it was still kind of a small business within the Walt Disney Productions.
Yeah, it was. Well, almost every division was. It was all small. But yeah, they putting out, again, so weird in the world before video. It was either 16 millimeter films, or they literally had what were called film strips, which were basically a slideshow that you go through a certain machine. So it didn't move. It just went from, just a frame at a time, covering certain subjects. I guess there might have been a soundtrack that you play that had a sound, like a read-along book or something.
Which was probably on an LP. It was on a vinyl record that they would put on, drop the needle.
I didn't even think of that.
And then there would be somebody moving along, the film strip.
Yeah. So anyway, it was very small business. So it really was, you could chat with somebody. You chat with the head of the studio, basically. So I went over to WED, and again, I met some of the guys there, Steve Kirk, and who else was there at the time? There was like a small group, whatever, just kind of getting the feel of the place. And again, I found out later that somebody said, "Oh, he's like Ron Miller's golden boy," or something like that, which wasn't true. I was just a guy who, it was like, what do we do with him? Throw him over here. But the fact that it came from Ron Miller's office, maybe he said good things about me. I have no clue, but I certainly didn't feel that way.
But
anyway,
I was going to say, you got put into an office, and Ward Kimball was coming in, 3 days a week or something?
Something like that. Yeah, it was the Transportation Pavilion started out with basically for General Motors, like a Pirates of the Caribbean ride, except without the atmosphere, because instead of, Pirates famously envelops you in the time. Well, this was more because they couldn't spend all that money to basically do the other side of the ride. So it was like moving through gag scenarios. So your car would pivot toward looking at, and it started with the history of the wheel. So here's these guys trying to sell the idea of a wheel to the Sumerian king or whatever. And, here's, a couple of disgruntled guys because they have a triangle reel and a wheel and a square wheel. And the guy who's getting all the attention is this guy with a round circular wheel. There's something here. So it was that level of humor. And it had already started, I think, with Mark Davis working with Claude Coates. And then Mark retired. And Ward was a natural to come in because of his love of transportation and trains specifically.
And his wackiness.
Yeah, exactly. And his expertise and all that. And Ward was kind of a force of nature. So it's not like Claude, who was kind of a gentle guy, was going to roll over him or anything. Anyway, so I basically spent several days a week with Ward. I used to drive him crazy because I used we had a kneaded eraser that we shared, that we used on a round table that we worked across each other. And I would constantly sculpt it into a little dinosaur or something like that. Where every time I pick this up, it's something else. Anyway, he was like working with a time machine in that he was, how he'd make his soapbox racer and how to wind the rope to have an actual steering wheel and how you would wind it from there to the axle to actually steer. It was great. So we got to when we got to a certain era in time, like the first accident had an ice wagon and the first horseless carriage and he was in that period. He had been alive, so he could say, oh, the guy in the ice wagon would have these hooks hanging off or whatever. It was a detail there. And of course he told me stories of the studio and the warriors and all that. And it is the time I wish I kept a journal, kept a diary. But my son was like 2 or something like that. So it wasn't like I was going to go home and say, excuse me, son, I must write down my historical record. So, I have a lot of regrets, but that was certainly one of them. The Ward was fun. He had a cookie one day and it put it down a piece of paper and it made a stain. It was like there was enough oil in the cookie.
Yeah.
And he created this thing where different types of cookies he put on a paper and then put up an exhibit of just the stains on papers in one of the conference rooms and stuff like that. But it was really fun working with it. And I worked through it until they signed off on the show. And then like for the fun part, I was moved on to something else. Fun part meaning they actually build the ride. You go to Florida, you install the ride and all that. I moved from that to, and again, in terms of regrets, I always felt like I didn't want to bother people. Like when when Milt Call retired, everybody was having him sign their Art of Disney books. And I didn't go in. I kind of made a joke about, because everybody was having him sign everything. It's like, well, you want to sign my trash can? And walk in, he'd say, hey, Ted. And it's like, that was the friendliest he'd ever been to me. And it's like, I should have gone in and chatted. It was just, like I should have written down stuff with Ward and I should have kept up, visited every once in a while out in San Marino. We did go back when I was in TV animation. We had a day where we visited Ward's house and he ran his train back and forth on his track. Anyway, after that, I was assigned with Tim Delaney the Space Pavilion. Now, the Space Pavilion had a big painting that everybody loved that was basically a giant round ball and a obelisk next to it. Like imagine a giant ball and a Washington Monument next to it. And that's when I learned the term eyewash, meaning you do a painting, it's beautiful, it gets people excited, and it's like eyewash that everybody's into it, and nobody is thinking, wait a minute, can we build that? Because the idea was that whole building would rotate. And ultimately, the shows were about, well, I mean, it all depends on the ride, but let's say they're at most 10 minutes long. And the engineer said it would take us 8 minutes to get this thing to rotate, to just get it moving, because you're talking about steel and concrete and all that.
Right.
So basically, Tim and I spent our first chunk of the ride having to unsell the building to say this wouldn't work, because Walt always said there has to be some, there's going to be bad seats in every experience. You go into the theater, somebody's going to have to sit on the outer edge. But this was basically, imagine inside of a sphere, they have some audio animatronics down at the bottom that you can look down at. And then the idea is, what if you took the Circle Vision Theater and put it vertically? Instead of around you, it's in front of you in this big circle. Well, that means across from you, you're staring at the audience sitting on the other side of the sphere. And you're looking kind of sideways at this screen. And although the artwork all had these beautiful planets, because the idea was you're going to go through space and planets are whizzing by. But I said, you're actually seeing it at an angle. So they're not round planets. They're bananas because they're ellipses. You're not going to get that sense of being in that world. And again, we looked at, well, who would have a good view of it? And it was like as many or more bad seats than were good seats. Partially, I got to meet George Lucas during that. He was a consultant on it. And this is before he had built Skywalker Ranch. And the trade-off was he'd come in and give us 2 cents worth, and they would look at the plans of his ranch and, look at the drainage and look at that, because it's all, I've never been there, but it's, Victorian themed or Main Street themed. And it's like right up Disneyland's, area of expertise. One day, he would, of course, shuttle back and forth between LA and San Francisco. And Tim, for some reason, made the same trip. And he found himself sitting next to George Lucas one day. And George is coming down they were going to do a test they had basically did a circle vision, all black with little pinholes in it. So they put lights to it to look like space. Yeah. And they filmed it to test it out and, and show it down at Disneyland, the Circle Vision Theater. And we knew it wasn't working and all that. Well, Tim sat next to George and basically said, well, here's our problems, and basically loaded up George with, the stuff that we felt wasn't working, which was the facility. Anyway, we went down and saw the test, and I'll never forget, it was so bizarre because we went to Disneyland. To get the effect, you don't stand up in the Circle Vision Theater. You have to lay down. So you basically, the guardrails that they have to separate rows of people were like double rails. So we kind of laid on top of those. So I have this image of Ron Miller's, I think it was, this silhouette suspended on this railing up there, with stars going around. Anyway, it kind of made the point that, this isn't, the extreme costs of building that facility just didn't make sense and all that. Yeah. But then the problem was, it's kind of like fell to Tim, like, what are we going to do? We just started shooting ideas about like, what do we have to sell? But ultimately, when they created Epcot Center, instead of letting companies, support or, chip in for advertising, each individual stuff.
Yeah, sponsor them. Right.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted companies to sponsor the whole pavilion. Well, that means you have to find a company who's willing to basically give away that much money for word of mouth, for the visitors, for the hype that Disney would give them, which cut out most of Fortune 500. So you only had a few companies, and there was no company that rich that was into space. I mean, they talked to McDonnell Douglas at the time and maybe Boeing, and, and we don't have the.
But what were you talking, like $25, $50 million investment?
By then, I remember, and this is back in when did Epcot open? So figure a few years before that, 79, let's say. Then it was, I remember a quote of 35 million for a pavilion, and then $1 million toward this Epcot documentary. The idea
Epcot opened in 82, right? So
so I'd say
it's talking like late 70s.
Late 70s
that's
dollars.
A lot of money.
Exactly. So you can see how you've only got certain companies who can afford that, because it's not like, oh, we're going to invest this and here's the concrete payoff. Right. It is how many eyeballs are going to see it. Not as, you could spend that money on a series of commercials and hit more people and whatever. Yeah. So anyway, suddenly the space pavilion, and plus almost every pavilion in some way, when they look to the future, space was part of it. Even the land pavilion, I don't know if they actually did this. I don't remember, but it's like, well, we'll be growing plants in space. Horizons Pavilion ended in space. There is, and then of course there's Spaceship Earth. So it's kind of like, we got this covered and nobody can pay for it. And then luckily I was put on with Tony Baxter and Barry Braverman and Tom Morris on the Imagination Pavilion. When I came in, Andy Gaskell he had been on it. He wasn't on it when we were there, but he designed Figment, basically these great little lively drawings. And they had Dreamfinder, and you talk to Tony, you'll find out the background of that. And Tim Kirk or Steve Kirk's the sculpture of this professor type. Anyhow, I came on back then. Figment was not purple; he was kind of blue green. I worked on that. I did paintings, I did drawings and stuff like that, and story and some writing. But it was, it's a group thing. But I really clicked with Tony and Barry. Barry basically concentrated on all the hands-on exhibits. That after you went on the ride, you could wave your hands in front of a space, and instruments would appear in front of you and play. So you're basically conducting an orchestra that would be there and go away, and it's like a magical thing. So he was researching all sorts of basically museum type exhibits, and that could be applied in a more fanciful way. Anyway, when it came time for the song, the Sherman Brothers came in. They came in, and I even did a sculpture of Figment that they cast, which got broken in whatever year, and I painted them blue green. And then the Sherman Brothers came back, and their rhyme ended up saying, "and a purple pigment with figment." And I was saying, well, and they said, well, the alliteration works and all that. Well, blue green has the same number of syllables, but it was like, I don't know why I even bothered bringing it up. I didn't bring it up seriously anyway. And the Sherman Brothers have a lot more clout than Little Ted Stone. Anyway, that's when he shifted color. I worked through the first generation of that ride. And then basically Ron Miller said, we'd like you to take over these Epcot documentaries. Now, they had a real documentary guy on them before, Nick Clapp, who did a great geographic special, I think, on the human body. And then I think went into archaeology and actually discovered some hidden cities and stuff like that. But whatever. They wanted me to go in. I would have been so over my head. But I went over. The idea was on the opening week of Epcot, every night would have an Epcot special on the theme of each of the pavilions. So it'd be the land documentary, the spaceship Earth, the transportation documentary, all of these things.
And those would be on television.
Those would be, on network TV. And that was part of the sales to all these companies that you pitch in this money and we do these fantastic things.
Right.
I took over this and I just said, who wants to watch a documentary about the land? When you're talking about prime time. Now, I'm belittling education, all the things you could say about the land, I suppose. But I said, what if we make 4 documentaries? And the first one is The Future Human. And that's an excuse to talk about cloning, cybernetic implants, just science fiction type ideas. And the idea was we bring those things up and then find out who's actually working in that area. Where's technology at the time? So Future Human. The next one was Future Home. And a big part of it was home computers we have. Again, technology works so fast by the time that would have come out. It's like home computers.
Right.
But this is before home computers were everywhere. And these were all like classic Disney, had animated sequences as well as the live action documentary and the straight stuff. Then the Future City, which was, that brings in transportation, city planning, ecology, different ways space colonies.
That sort of focused on the overarching
and the final one
experimental prototype community of tomorrow, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the final one was Future Earth, which I always feared, never had to get into it, famously. But it's kind of like my worry was, what's the future of Earth? Overpopulation,
Soylent Green,
pretty much. Yeah, they are people. Anyway, the companies actually liked this idea because it meant instead of just I'm contributing all this money, and why am I contributing money to cover the cost of this land pavilion when I'm selling automobiles? This way, they were all part of every show. So they really liked the rethink. Anyway, I worked with Paul Chadwick, who created the comic character Concrete, and Andy Probert, who had designed for Star Trek. And they did these little miniature 4x6 little gouache paintings because that's what Nick had done. I said, well, we'll continue doing that. And they Paul said, yeah, I had a great time for a year teaching myself to paint better. Just to illustrate, this storyboard thing. I never had to pitch that board because they met with the networks. And again, this is small Disney thinking. These guys had all been at the studio when all the networks were begging Walt Disney to do something for them.
Right.
And ABC won with Disneyland. So they thought they were going to go in and pitch, and they would say, oh, yes. And there'd be a battle of the networks to get these specials on. Times have changed. And basically the response, a couple of things. It's not like this anymore, but it used to be that there were new models of cars that came out every September.
Right.
That was the month when cars were introduced. And, that was a lot of money looking to be spent on commercials. The other thing that happened every September were the new television season, which was covered in TV Guide, which, literally had the cover of that and ads all the way through it, because this was a time, generally right in the middle of the month, they would pitch their new shows, and there'd be big competition to each other. So they go to the networks, and they said, so after our new shows have been on for 2 weeks, you want us to take them off to put on documentaries. We have our own new news divisions to make low-rated documentaries. We really don't need this. And all that just dissolved away. It was just not thought out. It was that small company thinking in the past. That was in the era of what would Walt do.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the what would Walt do period.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
sort of the tail end of it, but it was still that. Yeah.
And after that, it was like, every time I was just a company man, they could move me all around and I wouldn't question it. But when I moved around, they actually gave me a raise. So I've been around enough that I then go back to Ed Hansen saying like, can I come back to features? And my salary had jumped up to, I would have been, let's put it this way, if I was a genius and came back, oh my God, Tad's coming back, maybe. But I was not, certainly not seen as such.
But your salary probably had gone up to like
exactly.
an
So
executive
basically,
level. Yeah.
The feeling was, we don't have a spot for you.
Right.
I couldn't easily work, even though I, visited the guys and knew what was going on. During that time, Don Bluth walked out with a bunch of animators.
Right.
And all that.
Yeah.
I was over at WED when that happened. It wasn't, certainly not my salary. Could I come back? And they didn't pitch like, well, you'd have to take this kind of cut when we come back. It was like, again, the guys I had worked with were gone. Frank and Ollie, Milt, Wooly, Wooly had died by that time. It wasn't like somebody was out there saying, oh, this is great. We could use them on our project.
Yeah.
So what saved me was going over to marketing and licensing, had a project where they needed to be on television, because back then it took 5 years for a Disney feature to come out. Now, I don't know if it changed that much, but they, in the new age, all those features are overlapping in production. So you get a new one every year. But back then it was literally like 4, maybe usually 5 years between, I don't know, Aristocats and Robin Hood and Rescuers and, Box and Hound. Anyway, it was, I think when I went there was only 55 people in the department, maybe not counting ink and paint. And those were the people turning out these Disney feature films. That didn't help licensing and marketing much, because they had to wait 5 years before they could design new, coloring books, tea sets,
toys,
of that.
All of it. Yeah.
So they wanted to start doing specials of some sort. So I went over to meet those guys, and they said, okay, we want specials idea. One that we have to do is Sport Goofy. And he's a really popular character in Europe because he's a soccer character. So that has to be one. And then, maybe something with Mickey and all that. So I had that initial meeting. There was a writer there too, Greg Crosby, I think. And so this is the only thing I had in front of me. I wasn't I should have maybe had a sense of desperation. I didn't. It was just like, oh, great, a project to work on. And when we had our next meeting, the writer had some log lines he had written up because obviously he was working on other stuff. I came in with 2 4x8-foot storyboards full of colored drawings and 2 complete stories. One was the soccer one that brought in Scrooge McDuck and the Beagle Boys and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Uncle Scrooge. And the other was Mickey and the Space Pirates. And that was a whole thing there. So the writer, all in good nature, just kind of turned his paper over. It was like, so that really put me in their heads as, wow, this guy writes and draws. He came up with the ideas. He presented them. They're both great. We want him to concentrate on that one. And that helped out later on because when Michael Eisner came.
Well, before
okay, go ahead.
I'm going to say before you go to that, they decided based on the 2. You essentially pitched the ideas like on beat boards, right? Your major beats.
Yeah, I didn't do it in. I used animation paper and would do like 3 or 4 drawings on one piece of paper. I don't know why I did it that way, but I guess because that's what I had was animation paper laying around, as opposed to cutting them up into like the Fox and Hound stuff that Mel did. He'd do a larger pastel drawing.
Like a 5x7 or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That. Yeah.
But I did them on. So my board was full of animation paper, and each one had. I mean, sometimes it would just be 2 characters with an attitude toward each other, and others would have, there's a background there and all that. It was all done in marker. I was thinking usually later on when I pitched at TV, I'd usually do it in pencil, Xerox that, and use markers on Xerox. But these things are probably original marker the whole time. And some of that was, the good drawing off a bunch of ugly drawings would cut out and I pasted on the other thing.
Sure.
So that's what it was. It was a very free flowing thing, but it was story beats basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So you pitched story beats. So they decided, let's do the Sport Goofy one.
Well, that's the one they definitely knew there was a market for and all that.
And so what happened, like, once they said we like that one, did that go into production or did you?
Yes, in that, and this is tricky on overlapping. Back when I was doing those Epcot specials, again, there were animated bits in it.
Yeah.
This is before Roger Rabbit. And Tom Wilhite was an executive who was, Rose talked to a lot of the young guys. I remember
his name has come up so many times on our podcast. I keep telling people anytime his name is brought up, Tom Wilhite is an unsung hero of that period of Disney productions.
One of the things that was described to me, basically, Tom went around the entire studio, certainly the entertainment areas, and talked to people and listened. So it wasn't like he stood from afar and said, what this needs. He went in and talked to people, and it was more like, what are the problems here? What are your frustrations? What are the good things? And he had a filter system. Obviously, you don't want just people griping. But I guess he put that in big binders of proposals, and basically that lifted him way up in the studio. Again, small company, lifted him way up in the studio and got new things underway. And that was right when, in fact, Tom was part of it, the Touchstone Pictures, where Disney felt like we've got to do more than what's perceived as children's entertainment, even though it should be family entertainment, meaning, that we should just do some. And Splash came out of that, which is a huge hit.
Yeah.
With Tom Hanks, Daryl Hannah. Anyway, so Tom had brought, Roger Rabbit was in development, and Tom knew the young guys, headed up by Daryl Van Sitters, who eventually left, created Renegade Productions or Animation Studios. Also on this group was Joe Ranft, who, of course, everybody should know from Pixar. Mike Giamo, who art directed Frozen. Yeah. Chris Buck, who did Tarzan and Frozen and bunches of things. God, I used to have the photo of everybody on my wall. Hold on for just a sec. Oh, no, I switch it with a feature film. Anyway, Ed Gombert was on the team, Joe Lance Cicero, I think, whatever, a group of mostly CalArts backed animation people. And they, there was kind of a feeling like this is the central team that could go on and do this Roger Rabbit part. In fact, they did a test animation of Roger Rabbit, with Pete Renaday being the detective, and then they did their design and just to see how it would work. So to get them to a project to work on, to keep this team off the other projects, we said to hit the timing of these Epcot specials, we got to start the animation. So they picked, I initially picked certain sequences. The guys kind of ignored me, or they did ignore me, and they did a different sequence. And the reason I picked certain ones is that it was for technical reasons, and this was more of an entertaining thing. Anyway, they did the home computer sequence, and then they did this one about energy with Denton Glumfield was our mad scientist professor. Anyway, they started working on it, and they actually turned out animation. And then those projects dissolved, and what we did was cut them together. And this is largely, Daryl and Mike and Joe Ramp figuring out Fun with Mr. Future, which is a short subject that came out about the same time as Tron. The narrator was Phil Proctor, his voice coming out of basically the inside of Mr. Lincoln's head. There was an audio animatronic head that didn't have any flesh on it that was used to display things, and they put a bow tie on him, and they called him Mr. Future. And basically, it was an excuse to use the animation that we had done. Anyway, that team, in theory, was supposed to do Roger Rabbit. And so Roger wasn't ready yet, and that's when they went on to Sport Goofy. And I really, again, I worked a lot of my shows, though. I really want to support them and their ideas, as opposed to ordering them to stick to mine. So they kind of re-storyboarded stuff, and it was the only drawback, which will haunt me in the future. They cut out a lot of the personality stuff, a lot of arguably the heart, and just went for the gags, which was very much like an old Goofy,
like the
cartoon.
art of, art
exactly, and how to play football
from the 40s,
exactly. So it was a very natural thing that they did, but it kind of didn't keep the other parts of the storyline. It was still there in an abbreviated form. Anyway, that project stopped and started. It was shut. We did that one version all in story reels, and I forget what happened, but basically that was kind of an end point. The production stopped. Guys went back to features. It was resurrected almost as a training project. In fact, Ward Kimball ended up being an advisor on it.
I had heard
back
that
to features.
I had heard that when Ward first, it was screened for Ward, they asked him what his thoughts were, and he recommended that they dig a hole and bury it out back, which is classic Ward,
Yeah. The Ward is famous for, I guess he did this gag several times, but he would, while he was still at the studio and the training program was underway, he'd stick his head in the room and say, "Walt's dead and you missed it," and then leave. And he played that several times to several audiences. Anyway, it got reworked and turned into odd things. And again, perhaps early on it was my fault for not saying, no, stick to these things in story. Okay, are we long? Then how do we do judicious cuts? I wasn't that kind of hands-on, and perhaps I should have been. Anyway, it eventually I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. It eventually came out and was broadcast on TV. Meanwhile, I was already at TV animation. We were deep in work on DuckTales, and suddenly the special comes up with Scrooge McDuck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and all these things that was nothing like the DuckTales show. And I was called into the boss's office, Gary Kreisel and Mike Webster, and I forget who else was there.
Gary Kreisel was head of the studio at the time, wasn't he? Or...
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, actually in live action and animation thing. Yeah. Gary had, and the reason why is Gary had taken the record company from being nothing to being a moneymaker part of the company. They created, all these character-driven albums of
sing-along
basically,
albums and
yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that.
Things like imagine Weird Al Yankovic putting out a record, kind of thing. Imagine it with Goofy and Mickey and Donald doing voices and stuff like that.
But you sort of jumped ahead though, because really,
I'm jumping ahead because I was called into the office and they were pissed at me. They wanted to be so angry, and they said, "This thing aired, and there's your name right there in story." And I said, "Oh yeah." I at that point I hadn't worked on it in years,
right?
And it was like, "Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of cool." And they were going. Obviously, they were irritated, but basically, I had nothing to do with that end result. I mean, the basics were there, but as much as Daryl and the guys had changed it, the new version was changed even more. So, but obviously it wasn't DuckTales, and this was coming out on TV before DuckTales, while they were ready to.
They wanted to do a big launch, but I want you.
So now we can go back, but it was just that was the end of Sport Goofy for me. Was me being frustratingly pleasant and happy while these guys really wanted to blow their tops at me. And it's like, sorry.
But we got to step back here, because you get a call one day from Michael Eisner. And I think, because we're going to bump up against time in a few minutes, I think you could just set this up and we'll talk about it next week. But you get, Michael Eisner and Frank Wells and Jeffrey Katzenberg come into the company, and
I didn't get a call from him. I know the call you're meaning now, but basically I found myself in Michael Eisner's living room in the first week of him being at Disney.
Right, but so you were on vacation when his office called and said,
exactly,
come to a meeting, and it was in Michael's home over in Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah, in Bel Air, I guess. Yeah.
And so how did that unfold? What happened at that meeting?
Well, basically, and this is where my weird, I am seen as this. He writes and draws, which was really weird. I mean, very. Unusual in the company then, which shouldn't be, because basically the story department of Disney Features started with artists who then moved into coming up with gags, moving into story and all that.
And writing.
The people who wanted to be in TV weren't at feature films. They were over in licensing and consumer products, I guess. That's the division. So they wanted to produce animation. And so when Michael Eisner came to the company, I guess there had been preliminary talks, because Eisner, I believe, started his career at Paramount.
Yeah.
But at it was at ABC, I believe, in children's programming.
Right.
He claims he was a big part of inspiration for Scooby-Doo. Because I said, make that guy into a dog, whatever, who knows? Anyway, he knew children's programming. He knew Saturday morning. Saturday morning back then was huge. Really doesn't exist anymore as we knew it. So the guy said, we want to get into television. So he had already talked to consumer products, and that was one of their, I'm sure they had meetings with every division saying, how do you want to expand? How do you want to do all that? And that's what they said. So they were in charge of calling together a group of people. And I was one of the people, because of their experience with me, that they wanted at that meeting. And I had background in features, I had a background, throughout the company. I got a call from Bo Boyd, head of consumer products, and said, I know you're on vacation, but we would like you to come to a meeting at Michael Eisner's house this Sunday. And of course I said yes, because I didn't know anything about what's going on, except all of Hollywood knew what was going on in just what we were reading in the trades and newspapers. It was being covered everywhere about this takeover of Disney. How is it going to work? Roy Disney involved? Where's Ron Miller? All that stuff was going on. And it's not like we had firsthand knowledge. We were all just reading about it. I showed up there with, I think there was 10 of us in all, which we laughed about. I think Jim Magon, who was a key person at TV animation, said we should have T-shirts made because some article said they called together the 10 most creative people at Disney Animation, and we were going to have T-shirts that said 1/10 of. Anyway, so we went there, and I had my Mickey and the Space Pirates artwork, in a manila envelope. So we talked about different things. I showed that, and he was impressed. But he said, and this is key then, he said, no, but Mickey is too valuable. We don't want to go ahead until we can do it right. So I appreciated that sentiment. Also, his view of animation was Disney is the top name in animation. We should be everywhere that animation is. That doesn't, and we should be the best. He didn't mean that TV stuff has to look like feature films. He just said it's got to be the best stuff on TV, or that would be the goal. Features would be the best animated features. You're going to be the best television. If they had a commercial division, they should be doing the best commercials. Whatever it is. That was his sentiment, which I think is right.
So this is really the beginnings of Walt Disney Television Animation as it would become.
Well, what happened is we talked about a lot of things. And in that meeting, Michael Eisner said, my kids went to summer camp and they came back with this candy called Gummi Bears. They're crazy about it. I swear, you do a project called Gummi Bears, it will be a hit, which he kind of basically ordered that. I remember we had kind of a meeting in the parking lot of his house. Just basically, he had good ideas. He was pretty sharp and all that. I said, yeah, except for that Gummi Bears idea. A few years later, I found myself co-producing and story-editing Gummi Bears. Yeah.
So I want to, because we are bumped up against time here, Tad.
Sure.
I want to put a pin in this because this is really, this meeting that you just talked about is the beginning of TV animation.
Yeah.
Right? So
and I didn't go, it was a while before I ended up there, several months, but you're right. I got to be there.
That was the beginning of it. And so when we come back next week, I want to talk about, what happened next. Okay. And so we'll pick it up next week. How's that?
That sounds good. Let's schedule it.
All right. Thank you, Tad. It is so great having you on the Skull Rock podcast. I look forward to week 3 next week with you.
All right.
Skull Rock Podcast is now on Patreon. Dive deeper into the world of animation, films, and behind-the-scenes stories with your hosts, Aljon Go and Dave Bossert. Not only will you be helping to keep the magic alive, but you will be part of our special community with ad-free episodes. We want to thank friend of the show, Joshua Volkert, as well as Skull Rock crew members, Steve Minch and Chris Banis, for their support. If you would like to join our Skull Rock crew, please visit our Patreon link in our show notes or visit patreon.com/Skull Rock Podcast. Thank you for listening and for your continued support of everything we do.
Hey gang, it's time once again for yet another Disney travel deal, and this for Disney Visa card members, where you can save up to 30% on select days of 5 or more nights. This winter, you can escape to a tropical oasis with this offer at Aulani. You can stay in an ocean or partial ocean view room or villa, saving 30% on stays of 5 or more consecutive nights. You can save 25% on stays of 4 consecutive nights, or 20 to 25% on 4 or 5 consecutive night stays on all other view types. It's for most nights January 4th of 2026 to April 9th of 2026 as well. And so this is an awesome deal. And once again, want to go ahead and take advantage of this by contacting my wife, Kristen. She will hook you up. She's got years and years of experience booking Disney trips. And not only that, but also cruise line, any cruise line, Adventures by Disney, Universal Resort. She can do that for you. Save you time and money. Email her for your free quote today. That's Kristen, Kristen, at magicaljourneysvacations.com.
Skull Rock Podcast, where you hear the stories behind the adventures.
Let's get out of here!
Come on, Scotty, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here, Lieutenant.
Tad Stones Part 2 in the books. Dave, Once again, great stories from Tad, and what a great personality to have on the show.
Yeah, he's absolutely terrific and has had an incredibly varied career, and he was right there in the thick of it when, Michael Eisner, Frank Wells, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Roy E. Disney all sort of, resurrected the Walt Disney Company. And Tad was in the thick of it during that time. And all I can say, Aljon, is that it's a fascinating interview and hearing all of the backstories from him. And this is just part 2. This is a 6-part interview. I mean, just a tremendous amount of information about Disney, the inner workings, the renaissance of animation, the television division really getting off, Disney TV division really getting off the ground.
I love it. And I am getting the kids so into the Disney afternoon shows. I mean, they're starting to watch Quack Pack now, Dave. I'm so happy about that. It makes me happy. But
that's
man,
awesome.
I tell you what, man, more with Tad coming up in the weeks to come. Man, we're looking forward to part 3 next week on the show. Now, gang, thank you so much. If you love Disney and pop culture, thank you for listening to the very end. Please like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. You might be checking us out on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. You might be also checking us out on Spotify, Apple. We're everywhere you can listen to podcasts. Subscribe and tell your friends. Share the show and let them know that you're listening to Skull Rock Podcast. Big shout out to everybody that has given us a 5-star review. Leave those comments. Put those reviews up there on Apple Podcasts. Every single bit help the algorithm push our show to a whole new audience. So we do appreciate it. Give us those 5 stars. We really would appreciate it. Also, you can follow us on all the socials, as Dave said earlier in the show: Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. We are there. We may not post regularly, but you can definitely reach out to us on those platforms if you choose. You can also send us those emails. We eat them up. Dave or Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com. Don't forget, you can check me out on Instagram, the best place for me, Aljon Go, Aljon Rocks on X. You can also check out my other podcast there, Dining at Disney, with my wife, Kristen, and Kat Arcori. We talk about the parks. We talk about Disney food. You'll hear about our Disney trip and where we ate. It's going to be great. Dining at Disney podcast every single week. And thank you to our friends at Sorcerer Radio at srsounds.com for promoting our show. They're part of the Sorcerer Radio Network. srsounds.com, all Disney music all day long. Dave.
Well, Aljon, as always, our listeners can check me out on the Tunes Behind the Tunes on Sirius XM Disney Hits Channel 133, excuse me. All during October, we are featuring the song Someone Is Waiting for You, sung by Shelby Flint from Disney's 1977 animated classic, The Rescuers.
Yes.
Also, you can get signed copies of many of my books at the oldmillpress.com, including my latest book, Find Your Happy Place, the 8-Step Guide to Boosting Your Creativity Through a Personal Retreat. Winner of multiple book awards, Aljon.
Yes,
that's right.
congrats.
It's won several book awards so far, which is crazy.
Rightfully so.
Thank you. And you can always go to my website, davidbossert.com. There's tons of free content. There's also a tab for free stuff. So if you have a book of mine and you want an autographed book plate, you can send away for it for free. That's right, free. There's book plates, there's bookmarks, there's free coasters. Just check it out on davidbossert.com under the free stuff tab. And with that, Aljon, I'm going to tell you, go out and have a fantastic week, everyone. Be kind to one another. And we'll be back next Monday with part 3 of Tad Stones right here on the Skull Rock Podcast.